The Galactic Council had made its decision. Earth, the once forgotten world in the far reaches of the galaxy, had been officially banned from all interstellar travel. The decision sent shockwaves across the galaxy, with planets and civilizations alike watching closely. For centuries, humanity had been ignored, dismissed as a primitive species on a small, insignificant world. But now, Earth had awakened. No one knew what had triggered the sudden surge of potential in humanity, but the Galactic Council feared the consequences. The Council, composed of beings from a dozen different star systems, held unimaginable power over the galaxy. Their influence stretched across countless worlds, maintaining peace and order, or so they claimed. But underneath their calm exterior, the Council had their own dark secrets. They didn't just govern, they controlled. And when Earth's technology began to advance rapidly, surpassing even their expectations, the Council took notice. Humanity's technological progression had always been slow. For centuries, Earth had been stuck in the same cycle. Wars, politics, and advancements that barely scratched the surface of what the universe had to offer. But that was before the discovery. The discovery of an ancient artifact buried deep beneath Earth's surface. A relic of a long-forgotten civilization that once ruled the galaxy. The artifact, a strange device with unknown capabilities, had unlocked a power in humanity that no one anticipated. In just a few short years, Earth had gone from a fledgling species with no place in the galaxy to one on the cusp of unimaginable power. The Galactic Council, in its infinite wisdom, had acted quickly. They issued a decree. No human vessel would be allowed to leave Earth's atmosphere. No human would be permitted to explore the stars. The ban was swift, brutal, and final. And yet it was only the beginning of the chaos that would follow. Eliza Markov, a scientist from Earth, was among the first to hear of the Council's decision. She stood in the vast control room of Earth's planetary defense network, her eyes glued to the holographic display in front of her. The news had just broken. The Galactic Council had issued the decree, and the entire planet was in shock. To think that Earth, a planet that had been left in isolation for so long, was now being rejected by the very beings who controlled the galaxy was almost impossible to grasp. But the reality was clear. The Council feared humanity. Her fingers danced across the control panel, accessing the latest communications. Her heart pounded as she read the messages from the various factions of the galaxy. Some were curious, some sympathetic, but most were fearful. They were all asking the same question. What did humanity discover? Eliza's mind raced. She knew what they were referring to, the artifact. It had been buried deep beneath the surface of Earth for millennia, hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy. When it was uncovered, it was like unlocking a door to an entirely new world. The artifact had given humanity the key to advanced technology, to weapons, and to energy sources that far exceeded anything the Council had ever encountered. But it wasn't just the technology that the Council feared. It was humanity itself. For the first time in history, Earth had found its place in the cosmos. And that place, it seemed, was not one the Galactic Council wanted humanity to occupy. If humans were allowed to explore the stars, who knew what they could accomplish? They could learn the secrets of the galaxy, create alliances, and perhaps even threaten the very power the Council held. The Galactic Council had been the ruling force in the galaxy for millennia, and the idea of a young, untested species rising up was more than they could tolerate. But as the Council's decree was broadcast across the galaxy, something unexpected happened. Rather than crumbling under the weight of the ban, humanity rallied. It was as if the Council had given them a reason to fight. Governments and factions across Earth began to unite, and the people of Earth found a new sense of purpose. No longer would they be caged within their own atmosphere. No longer would they be ruled by the whims of the Galactic Council. The spark of rebellion had been ignited, and humanity was no longer content to be passive observers of the galaxy. In the midst of this chaos, General Daniel Drake, a seasoned leader of Earth's military forces, watched the situation unfold with a mixture of caution and determination. He had spent his life training for a conflict of this magnitude, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The Galactic Council wasn't just another enemy to defeat. It was an entire system of power, a force that had maintained its grip over the galaxy for centuries. They had far superior technology, fleets of ships and soldiers that were trained for battle across the stars. And yet, despite the odds, humanity was determined to face them. As the first fleets of Council ships approached Earth's orbit, Drake convened with Eliza and the leaders of Earth's military and scientific divisions. The room was tense, filled with the sound of muffled conversations and hurried preparations. Everyone knew that the fate of Earth hung in the balance. If they could not stand up to the Council, humanity's dreams of reaching the stars would be crushed before they ever had a chance to take flight. Eliza stood in front of the Council, her mind still reeling from the decision of the Galactic Council. She had spent her life studying the artifact, unlocking its secrets, and pushing the boundaries of what humanity could achieve. But now, everything had changed. The Council had made it clear they would not allow humanity to advance any further. They would not allow humans to spread their influence across the galaxy. And Eliza couldn't help but wonder, was the artifact their greatest discovery, or was it their biggest mistake? "I studied their tactics," General Drake said, his voice steady but filled with an edge of anger. "The Council will strike fast and hard. They will come with everything they have, and they will try to take control of the artifact. We cannot let that happen. If they do, it's the end of humanity's future in the galaxy." Eliza nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. "We don't have the firepower to compete with their fleets head-on. But we have something they don't expect. We have the artifact. And with it, we can level the playing field." Drake's eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting we use the weapon?" "It's not just a weapon," Eliza said, her voice growing more determined. "It's more than that. It's a key to something greater. But it's dangerous, and we must be careful. If we use it recklessly, we could destroy everything." The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled in. The stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated. Humanity had been given the power to change the galaxy, but at what cost? The Council had banned humanity from the stars, fearing what they might become. But little did they know, their ban had only fueled the fire that would push humanity to rise up against the greatest power in the galaxy. The real question now was not whether humanity could survive, but whether they could prove to the galaxy that they were no longer to be underestimated. The battle for humanity's place in the stars was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's world was on the verge of a revolution. The Galactic Council had made it clear that Earth was to remain isolated. The ban was absolute, and the punishment for any breach was severe. But despite their decree, the Council had severely underestimated humanity's resilience and thirst for exploration. More than just a ban, the Council's actions ignited a fire in Earth's population, a fire that could not be extinguished. In the dark recesses of Earth's most secure facilities, Eliza Markov worked tirelessly. The ancient artifact, now stored under the highest security, had become the focal point of humanity's future. Its power was beyond anything Earth had ever seen. It wasn't just advanced technology. It was a key to the unknown. A tool that could unlock unimaginable power, a weapon that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. And now, Eliza and a team of scientists were racing against time to figure out how to harness it before the Council reached Earth. Eliza, a scientist with a deep understanding of the artifact, knew that the Council's interest was more than just a simple desire to maintain control. The artifact wasn't just a relic from an ancient civilization. It was the last of its kind, and it held the secrets of a power that could give its wielder complete dominance. It was a weapon of mass destruction, but it was also a tool of creation, capable of manipulating energy, altering the very fabric of the universe, and controlling vast, complex systems that no living being had ever truly understood. The Council had known this for centuries, which was why they had been so determined to ensure humanity would never discover it. "Eliza, you need to see this," called Dr. Victor Renner, a senior researcher on the project. His voice was filled with urgency, a tone Eliza had learned to recognize when something important had been discovered. She quickly made her way to the main laboratory where Dr. Renner stood before a large holographic display. "What is it?" she asked, her voice calm despite the pressure mounting all around her. The war against the Council had already begun, and every moment counted. Renner stepped aside, revealing a series of ancient symbols that flickered across the screen. "We've managed to decrypt some of the data from the artifact's energy matrix. These symbols, they appear to be a form of instruction. It's a map to a hidden location, maybe another artifact, maybe something even more powerful." Eliza's heart raced. This was exactly what humanity needed, a way to learn more about the artifact, possibly uncover even greater powers that could turn the tide in their favor. "Can we access it? Can we follow this map?" Renner hesitated. "That's the thing. The map leads to a distant star system, far beyond the reaches of any known galaxy. We don't even have the technology to reach it yet. But if this is what I think it is, then this could be humanity's key to taking down the Galactic Council. The question is, are we ready?" Eliza's mind raced. They had spent months trying to understand the artifact, but this discovery changed everything. If humanity could unlock the full potential of the artifact, they could rise to challenge the Council in ways no one ever expected. But time was running out. The Council had already begun sending fleets toward Earth, their ships gathering at the edge of the solar system. Earth needed to act fast. Meanwhile, the world's governments were in turmoil. Leaders who had once resisted the idea of challenging the Council now saw the opportunity to unite humanity for a common cause. Global alliances formed, military forces were mobilized, and space stations across the solar system were outfitted with the latest technology. Earth's first real fleet of interstellar ships began to take shape, each one designed to protect the planet, and, if necessary, strike back against the Council. General Daniel Drake, who had been leading the charge in Earth's military operations, stood in a war room overlooking a holographic display of the solar system. His face was etched with the weight of the responsibility he now carried. Earth's survival depended on the decisions he made in the coming days. "We've got to move faster," Drake said, his voice heavy. "The Council isn't going to waste time. They'll be here soon. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us. And we need to find that second artifact. If there's anything in it that can help us fight back, we have to get there first." Drake's words weren't just a command. They were a rallying cry. The pressure was on, and humanity could not afford to fail. They had discovered the potential of the artifact, but they had no idea how to fully control it. The unknown map could be the key, but reaching it would take more than just willpower. Humanity would need new technology, new tactics, and an army ready for war. Back in the research labs, Eliza and her team worked around the clock. With each passing day, they made small breakthroughs in understanding the artifact's power. They learned how to harness the energy stored within it, and in doing so, they created new weapons capable of matching the Council's finest technology. But there was still so much they didn't know. Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that the Council wasn't just fighting to stop humanity's advancement. They were fighting to prevent something much worse. The artifact might have been the key to humanity's rise, but it could also be a key to something far more dangerous, something even the Council feared. And Eliza wondered, was it possible that humanity had uncovered a force too powerful to control? Or could this new power be exactly what they needed to fight back and secure their place in the galaxy? The weeks passed, and the Council's fleet drew closer. Their ships, dark and imposing, loomed just outside Earth's orbit. Their size alone was enough to crush any resistance, but humanity had something they didn't: hope, determination, and the will to survive. Then it happened. The first Council ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their arrival was nothing short of overwhelming, a force unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They came in waves, a coordinated assault from every corner of the galaxy. The sight of them alone made the people of Earth shudder with fear. They were here, and the battle for Earth's future had begun. But humanity wasn't going to back down. They had the artifact, and they had the will to fight. Eliza and her team were ready. The military forces were in position, and General Drake stood at the forefront, commanding humanity's response. As the first shots rang out in the sky, humanity's true test began. Would they stand their ground and prove to the galaxy that they were more than just a fledgling species? Or would the Council's might crush Earth's dreams of a future among the stars? The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would never be the same again. This was just the beginning. The artifact was more than a weapon. It was a symbol. And the galaxy was about to learn that when humanity was pushed into a corner, they fought harder than anyone could ever imagine. The banning of humanity had triggered something greater than the Council could ever have anticipated, a rise that would forever change the fate of the galaxy. The first shots fired between humanity and the Galactic Council were like the thunderclap of a storm that would not easily subside. Earth's atmosphere had been pierced by the Council's powerful ships, and their battle fleets hovered just beyond Earth's orbit, waiting to unleash a devastating onslaught. The people of Earth were bracing for the worst, but instead of cowering in fear, they found themselves galvanized by an unrelenting will to survive. The streets that once bustled with mundane life were now filled with soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians alike, all working toward one single unified purpose: to defend their world and to prove that humanity had a place in the stars. General Daniel Drake stood in the command center, his mind racing with the enormity of the situation. The entire planet's fate was hanging in the balance, and it was up to him to lead humanity into a conflict against an overwhelming foe. The Galactic Council's fleet was far more advanced than anything Earth had ever encountered. Their ships were massive, sleek, and bristling with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities with a single blast. But humanity had something the Council did not understand: the artifact, and the sheer determination to never back down. Drake's eyes flicked over the digital displays in front of him. The military, having spent years preparing for the possibility of contact with the galaxy's more advanced civilizations, was beginning to mobilize. Hundreds of Earth's newest ships, crafted with technology derived from the artifact, were slowly taking their positions in defense of the planet. Though still in their infancy, these ships were a testament to human ingenuity, their sleek forms powered by energy harvested from the artifact itself. The relic had unlocked a new realm of possibility, and its energy was now humanity's greatest asset. Eliza Markov stood beside Drake, her face grim but determined. She had spent the last few months working tirelessly with the team of scientists to understand the artifact's potential. Together, they had managed to reverse engineer some of its energy systems, creating weapons that could rival the Council's. But as they tested these new devices, Eliza knew they still had not scratched the surface of the artifact's true power. There was much they did not understand, and even less time to figure it out. "I can't believe they're actually here," Eliza muttered, eyes locked onto the holographic map of the solar system. "I thought we'd have more time to prepare." "We'll adapt. We have no choice," Drake said, his voice steady. "We'll fight for every inch of this planet. We're not just defending Earth, we're defending our future. If we can't stand up to the Council now, we'll never be free." Eliza nodded, but her mind kept returning to the unknowns, the part of the artifact they still hadn't unlocked. The map, the one that led to a distant star system, a place beyond known space. If they could find whatever lay there, they might just have the means to turn the tide of the war. The Council feared the artifact, but did they fear what else humanity could uncover? And could humanity truly control what they had stumbled upon? The first battle erupted just hours after the initial warning signals. The Council's fleet descended like a wave of destruction, launching assault ships and fighters toward Earth. The skies above the planet were filled with streaks of light as missiles and energy blasts collided, each side fighting for dominance. Earth's new fleet launched in waves, their vessels brimming with weaponry and defensive systems, unlike anything humanity had ever built before. The battle was nothing short of chaotic, with ships maneuvering at breakneck speeds, trying to outsmart each other in the vast expanse of space. Humanity's forces were still inexperienced in the art of intergalactic warfare, but they fought with an intensity and ferocity that surprised even their enemies. The ships, though smaller and less equipped than the Council's, had a remarkable advantage. The energy sourced from the artifact gave them a resilience that the Council's ships had not anticipated. It was like the energy from the artifact was alive, feeding into the ships, making them stronger, faster, and harder to hit. The tide of battle was shifting. Slowly but surely, Earth's forces were gaining ground. On the ground, the situation was no less dire. The Council had sent legions of soldiers to Earth's surface, each one a trained warrior, genetically engineered to be the perfect soldier. Their mission was clear: subdue the humans, seize control of the artifact, and end the threat once and for all. However, the soldiers of Earth, many of whom had never seen war before, fought back with unrelenting fury. Earth's armies had learned quickly. The cities were transformed into battlegrounds, with barricades, traps, and defensive lines established at every turn. People who had once been ordinary civilians now found themselves fighting for survival, their homes turned into war zones. In the chaos of the fighting, General Drake and his elite forces were deployed to defend key locations across the planet, including the facility housing the artifact. The Galactic Council knew that if they could capture the artifact, they could end the war, but Drake would make sure that would never happen. He stood on the front lines, rallying his troops, directing the defense, and ensuring that Earth's best scientists continued to unlock the secrets of the relic. Back in the labs, Eliza and her team had a new task: unlocking the remaining data stored in the artifact's energy matrix. They knew it could hold the key to humanity's ultimate weapon, but the pressure was mounting. Every moment they spent analyzing it brought them closer to discovering something new, but it also brought them closer to the Council's soldiers. Every breakthrough, every code deciphered, made Eliza realize just how much danger they were in. If they were to uncover something powerful enough to change the course of the war, they had to do it fast, before the Council got to them. The weeks of intense battle began to take their toll. Earth's military had learned from their mistakes and adapted quickly, using the relic's technology to enhance their weaponry and shield their ships and cities from the Council's brutal attacks. But even as Earth's forces gained ground, the Galactic Council responded with greater intensity, sending more ships, more soldiers, and more advanced weapons to crush the human resistance. But the more the Council pushed, the more humanity pushed back. It was a war of attrition, a battle not just for survival, but for the soul of humanity. No longer were they fighting for mere existence. They were fighting for a future among the stars. They were fighting to prove that they were not just a primitive species, but a force to be reckoned with. The artifact had given them the power to challenge the greatest empire in the galaxy, and humanity was ready to use it to its full potential. The Council, watching from afar, had realized one undeniable truth: humanity was no longer a threat they could ignore. The power they had unlocked could change everything. It was a weapon unlike anything they had ever encountered, and it was in the hands of a species that was determined to never be ruled again. The fear in the hearts of the Council members grew. It wasn't just the artifact that scared them anymore. It was the resolve of humanity itself. As the battle raged on, it became clear that humanity was not backing down. They were not only defending their world, they were fighting for the right to be free. And the Galactic Council, once so confident in their rule, were beginning to realize that they had made a grave mistake. Humanity's rise was unstoppable. And now, it was only a matter of time before the galaxy learned the true power of Earth. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council raged on, with each passing day bringing new victories and devastating losses. Earth had become a battlefield, its skies and surface scarred by the relentless conflict. Cities were reduced to rubble, entire fleets were lost in the vastness of space, and lives were shattered. But through it all, humanity's resolve had only hardened. The ban the Council had imposed, the very thing that was supposed to stifle humanity's progress, had become the catalyst for Earth's rise. The Council had underestimated the strength of human spirit, and now they were paying the price. On the front lines, General Daniel Drake watched as Earth's forces launched another counterattack against the Council's ships. The battle had become a constant cycle of offense and defense, each side testing the other's limits. Drake's mind was always focused on strategy, calculating the next move, anticipating the Council's response. Yet, despite his experience and tactical brilliance, he knew that their advantage, the key to turning the tide, lay in the artifact and its potential. If they could unlock its full capabilities, they could not only defend Earth, but also have the means to strike back at the heart of the Galactic Council. "Eliza, we need more time," Drake said, his voice tense as he gazed out over the map of space. The holographic images flickered with the locations of various battles, the positions of Earth's fleet, and the dark shapes of the Council's warships. "The Council is not going to give us any. If we're going to win this, we need the artifact's secrets now." Eliza Markov stood beside him, her brow furrowed with worry. Her team had been working nonstop, poring over the artifact's data, attempting to decode its final layer. Every time they thought they were close to understanding it, a new mystery emerged. They had learned much, but the full scope of the artifact's power remained elusive. "We're getting there, General," she said, her voice steady but strained. "Every piece of data brings us closer, but there's something I'm starting to suspect. The artifact, it's more than just a weapon. It's a gateway, a portal. There's an entire network of them, scattered throughout the galaxy." Drake turned to her, confusion evident on his face. "A portal? You mean this thing could open up entire regions of space for us?" "It's not just that," Eliza replied, her eyes lighting up with realization. "The artifact isn't just a key to one star system or one weapon. It's the key to something far greater. There's a reason the Galactic Council has gone to such lengths to keep it hidden from us. It's not just about power, it's about control. These artifacts, scattered across the galaxy, are the very things that hold the galaxy together, that control its flow of energy, its resources. If we can unlock the full potential of this artifact, we can reshape the entire galaxy, maybe even overthrow the Council's reign." Drake's eyes widened. The Council's oppressive rule had lasted for millennia, and they controlled every aspect of life in the galaxy. To think that a single artifact could hold the power to disrupt their control was a revelation that shifted the very nature of the war. But it also posed a new risk. What if the power of the artifact was too dangerous? What if humanity wasn't ready to wield it? "Eliza, if we open that door, there's no turning back," Drake warned. "We don't know what's on the other side." "I know," Eliza said, her voice firm. "But we don't have a choice anymore. The Council is determined to destroy us. If we don't fight back with everything we have, Earth won't survive. We need to take the risk." As the conversation continued, the urgency of the situation became even clearer. The Council had launched an all-out offensive, sending their fleets into Earth's atmosphere, prepared to strike the planet and crush the human resistance. The time for defensive strategies was over. Earth had to strike first. But without the full power of the artifact, the odds were stacked against them. Back in the heart of Earth's military command center, the battle raged. Drake, Eliza, and the rest of the leadership team watched the screens with bated breath as the Council's warships closed in on their position. The skies were filled with combat, as humanity's ships darted in and out of combat, exchanging fire with the Council's superior vessels. Earth's forces had managed to inflict damage on the outer ring of the Council's fleet, but they were being pushed back. Time was running out. Then a breakthrough came. A deep, resonant hum filled the lab where Eliza and her team had been working. The artifact, which had remained dormant for so long, suddenly activated. A beam of brilliant otherworldly light shot up into the sky, blindingly bright. The room was filled with the hum of energy as the artifact seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Elisa stared at the energy signature on the monitor, her heart racing. "We've unlocked it," she whispered in disbelief. "It's ready." "What does that mean?" Drake asked, urgency in his voice. "It means," Elisa said, her voice filled with awe, "that we can now access the artifact's full potential. The energy it's channeling is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's capable of reshaping entire star systems." Drake's eyes widened. "Can we use it now?" "We have no choice," Eliza replied. "We need to activate the portal. We need to reach the other artifacts. The Council's fleet is too powerful for us to fight without more resources. If we can unlock the network of these ancient artifacts, we can tip the scales." Drake nodded resolutely. "Do it." Elisa and her team worked quickly to prepare the final sequence. The energy around the artifact intensified as the room hummed with power. The artifact had become a conduit, pulling energy from across the galaxy, from the very fabric of space itself. As the countdown began, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and the air was thick with the weight of what was about to happen. Then, without warning, the artifact unleashed a massive pulse of energy. The entire planet seemed to shake as a rippling distortion appeared in the fabric of space, opening a portal. It was massive, an entryway to an entirely new part of the galaxy. For a moment, the entire room fell silent. The pulse of energy was still vibrating through the air, and Elisa's heart raced. She had done it. The network of artifacts was no longer a theory, it was real. The Council had never anticipated this. And then, the next step of humanity's rise began. With the portal open, Earth's forces were no longer confined to their home planet. New fleets of ships, powered by the artifact's energy, began to pour through the opening, advancing into new regions of space that were previously inaccessible. The Council's fleet, already stretched thin, could not anticipate the force that had just been unleashed. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now the tables had turned. But as humanity moved forward, there was a new reality to face. They were no longer simply fighting to survive. They were fighting to reshape the very structure of the galaxy. And with the artifact's power in their hands, humanity was ready to stake their claim in the stars. The Galactic Council's reign had begun to fracture, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's journey had only just begun, but the winds of change were now fully in motion. The Council had feared Earth's rise, and they were about to discover just how unstoppable humanity could be. Humanity had just crossed the point of no return. The massive portal, now fully open, had unleashed a torrent of unimaginable energy, changing the very nature of the war between Earth and the Galactic Council. The artifact had become humanity's greatest weapon, its power resonating through space like a beacon of hope. No longer was Earth confined to its own planet, or even its solar system. The potential of the artifact had allowed humanity to leap into a broader, unknown galaxy, with new resources and advanced technologies ripe for the taking. General Daniel Drake stood at the heart of Earth's military command center, staring at the holographic display in front of him. The portal had already begun to warp the very fabric of space, creating rifts that connected Earth to regions far beyond their reach. A new fleet of ships had begun to emerge through the opening, their sleek hulls gleaming with the energy harvested from the artifact. These ships were not just vessels of war. They were the symbol of humanity's ascension to the stars. "General, the First Fleet has entered the portal," reported Captain Liu, one of Drake's most trusted officers. Her voice was filled with urgency, but there was also a sense of awe in her tone. "We're seeing new star systems, uncharted space." Drake's eyes narrowed. This was humanity's chance to take the fight directly to the Galactic Council, but they couldn't afford to waste any time. The Council was a vast empire, its power rooted in countless planets and systems. Earth's forces may have gained an advantage, but they were still a fledgling civilization. If they didn't press their advantage quickly, they could be crushed before they even had a chance to fully understand the magnitude of the artifact's power. "Prepare the next wave," Drake ordered, his voice steely. "We need to strike fast and strike hard. The Council won't sit back and let us claim these new territories. They'll come for us." As the first fleets began to venture into uncharted space, General Drake knew that this was the moment that would define humanity's future. The war against the Galactic Council was far from over, but humanity now had the means to challenge them on equal footing. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about winning, about proving that humanity belonged among the stars. Back on Earth, Eliza Markov and her team of scientists were hard at work, deciphering more of the artifact's complex structure. The full potential of the artifact had not yet been realized, and they knew there was much more to uncover. The portal was only the beginning, a gateway to a new realm of power. But as Eliza pored over the data, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. What if the artifact's power was too much for humanity to handle? What if unlocking the full extent of its capabilities would lead to their downfall, not their salvation? "Eliza, we need to talk," said Dr. Victor Renner, one of the leading researchers on the project. His face was tense, his brow furrowed with concern. "The portal. It's expanding faster than we anticipated. We've detected a shift in the artifact's energy field. There's a resonance we didn't predict. It's growing stronger, almost uncontrollable." Eliza's stomach twisted. She had feared this. The artifact was a power beyond comprehension, and they had only begun to scratch the surface of its potential. "How bad is it?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "We're not sure yet," Renner replied. "But if this continues, the portal could widen beyond what we can control. It could tear apart the fabric of space itself. We need to make sure we understand the artifact before we do anything else. If we push too hard, we could trigger something catastrophic." Eliza stared at the screen in front of her, her mind racing. The more they unlocked from the artifact, the more powerful and dangerous it became. The Council had feared it for a reason. Could humanity truly control the forces they had unleashed, or were they playing with a power too great to be contained? Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was not standing idle. They had watched in disbelief as Earth's forces poured through the portal and began claiming new star systems. The speed of humanity's advance was unprecedented, and it threatened to destabilize the entire balance of power in the galaxy. The Council, once invincible, now found itself in a precarious position. For centuries, they had controlled the galaxy with an iron fist, subjugating planets and civilizations to their will. But now, one species, one planet, was challenging their rule. A high-ranking member of the Galactic Council, known only as Counselor Varnock, paced in his private chamber aboard the Council's flagship. His hands clenched into fists as he watched the unfolding events on his holographic display. "They have unlocked the artifact," he muttered to himself. "The humans, they've gone too far." Varnock had been tasked with overseeing the suppression of Earth's rebellion, but what he had underestimated was humanity's sheer willpower and resourcefulness. They had defied the Council's orders, broken the ban, and now they were rising faster than anyone had expected. The Council had always regarded Earth as insignificant, a primitive world with no real place in the greater galactic order. But now, the humans had the one thing the Council feared most: the power to change the course of history. "What are our options?" Varnock demanded, turning to one of his advisors. "Earth's fleet is formidable," the advisor replied, his voice shaky. "But they are still scattered. We have the advantage in numbers. If we concentrate our forces, we can crush them before they become a real threat." "But they have the artifact," Varnock said, his voice laced with frustration. "We can't underestimate that. If they can fully harness its power." The advisor hesitated. "We have intelligence suggesting they haven't unlocked the full extent of the artifact yet. There's still time, but we need to act quickly. Once they do, we'll send everything we have, Varnock interjected, his voice cold. "We'll destroy their fleets, their planets. Earth will be nothing more than a smoldering husk. They will learn their place." The Council, despite its vast power, was now in a state of panic. They understood that humanity's rise, driven by the artifact, posed a real existential threat. If they did not act swiftly and decisively, their reign over the galaxy would end, and with it, their absolute control. The time had come to show humanity their true place. As Varnock's forces began to assemble for a counteroffensive, Eliza and her team were making significant progress. The artifact's power continued to grow, and they began to realize just how much humanity had unlocked. They were not simply tapping into a new source of energy. They were connecting to a network that spanned the galaxy, linking various systems and technologies that the Council had hidden for centuries. Earth was not just gaining access to new resources. They were gaining access to a galactic web of power. But Eliza still couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. The deeper they went, the more they uncovered, the more dangerous the artifact seemed. It was not just a tool of war. It was a force of nature, a power that could reshape the universe itself. The question that haunted her was whether humanity was ready for such power, or whether it would destroy them all. With the Council's counteroffensive looming on the horizon, Earth's forces had to make a choice. Continue pushing forward into the unknown, claiming new territories and resources, or focus on understanding the artifact's full potential before it was too late. The fate of humanity and the galaxy hung in the balance. As the countdown to the next battle began, General Drake looked out at the stars. The time for hesitation had passed. Humanity had fought hard to get to this point. Now they had to take the fight to the Council, or risk losing everything. The battle for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. And this time, humanity was not going to back down. The air was thick with anticipation as General Daniel Drake stood before the massive command center, staring out at the holographic displays of battle zones across the galaxy. The countdown to the next major conflict was ticking down in the background, and every passing second felt like a weight pressing down on him. Earth had made tremendous strides, but they were still facing the might of the Galactic Council, a force far more powerful and entrenched in the galaxy than they had ever anticipated. Despite the momentum humanity had gained, this battle was different. The stakes had been raised to an unimaginable level. This was no longer just about survival. This was about taking the future of the galaxy into their own hands. The portal they had unlocked had opened up vast swaths of space to humanity, but it also brought unforeseen risks. The artifact had connected them to a web of ancient technologies, all guarded by the Council. Every system they ventured into was filled with danger and opportunity, but each new discovery could also be their undoing if they weren't careful. Eliza Markov, humanity's leading expert on the artifact, had made remarkable progress, but there was still much they didn't fully understand. The artifact wasn't just a weapon. It was something far greater, and if misused, it could bring about the destruction of everything humanity had worked for. "General, we're ready for the next phase," Captain Liu said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "The new fleet is in position. The first wave is prepped and waiting for your command." Drake turned, his face hardening with resolve. The plan was simple: strike hard and fast. They had to take advantage of the artifact's network before the Council had time to adapt. Earth's forces had been pushing outward, claiming systems and discovering untapped resources, but they could not let the Council regroup. Every victory they scored, no matter how small, gave humanity another piece of the galaxy. And that was something the Council would never allow to stand. The Council had sent reinforcements. Their fleets had been bolstered by the sudden appearance of a new type of ship, one more advanced than anything Earth had seen before. The Council was throwing everything they had into this battle, and Earth's military would have to meet them head-on. "We've identified several key Council command ships," Drake said, his voice calm but filled with a hard edge. "If we can take out their high command, we'll cripple their ability to respond. The rest of their fleet will fall apart without direction. But we need to act fast. They'll be expecting us." "What about the artifact?" Eliza Markov asked, entering the command center with her team. She'd been following every new development with a close eye. Her focus was unshakable, but the stress was starting to show on her face. The artifact's power was growing exponentially, and humanity had only barely begun to understand how to control it. "We're going to use it," Drake replied, his voice resolute. "But we have to be careful. We can't allow it to spiral out of control. We need to keep our focus on the mission." Eliza nodded, but her expression was worried. "The artifact is still unstable. We don't know what the full extent of its power is. If we push too far, it could cause a cascade reaction, destabilizing the entire system." "We don't have a choice," Drake said. "The Council isn't giving us time to figure it out. If we wait too long, we'll be the ones crushed. We've unlocked too much of its potential. We need to strike now." The fleet was assembled, and the final preparations were underway. Drake's eyes never wavered from the command center's tactical map. The battle plan was set. Humanity would make its move, not just as survivors, but as conquerors. The time for desperation was over. They would either win this war and secure their place in the galaxy, or they would fall, together. In the dark reaches of space, the first wave of ships launched, cutting through the void at incredible speeds. Earth's ships, powered by the artifact, were faster, more resilient, and bristling with weapons that could tear through the Council's defenses. But the Council was prepared. Their ships were massive and heavily armed, designed to crush any foe that dared to challenge their authority. As Earth's ships entered enemy territory, they were met with the full force of the Council's military. The battle that ensued was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The skies above distant planets erupted with explosions as Earth's fleet clashed with the Council's formidable forces. Energy blasts filled the void, ships darting and weaving in a deadly dance. Earth's vessels were smaller, nimbler, and powered by the artifact's energy, but the Council's ships were massive and heavily armored. The tide of battle ebbed and flowed, each side gaining and losing ground in a relentless push and pull. Drake watched the battle unfold from the command center. The first wave was holding its own, but the Council was retaliating with ferocity. Earth's ships were taking damage, and reinforcements from the Council's main fleet were on their way. "We're getting reports of heavy resistance on the front lines," Captain Liu reported. "The first wave has been engaged with Council battleships. They're holding, but barely." Drake clenched his fists. This wasn't just a war of machines. It was a war of willpower. The Council's superior technology was being tested, but humanity's determination was unmatched. Even as they faced overwhelming odds, Earth's forces were refusing to give an inch. They had been underestimated for far too long, and now it was the Council that was feeling the pressure. "We need the second wave to push through," Drake said, his voice filled with urgency. "Activate the artifact. Bring in the new ships." Eliza's team was already prepared. The artifact's energy matrix had been fully integrated into the fleet's systems. With the activation, the new ships that emerged from the portal would be able to harness the full power of the artifact, giving them a devastating edge. As the second wave of ships surged forward, the artifact's energy exploded into the battlefield, creating shockwaves that rippled through the space around them. The ships now glowed with the artifact's power, their shields shimmering with an intensity that made the Council's ships seem fragile by comparison. The Council's forces were staggered as the second wave entered the fray. The sheer intensity of the energy being unleashed was overwhelming. Earth's ships, powered by the artifact, moved with a precision that made them nearly impossible to hit. The tides of battle began to shift, with Earth's forces slowly but surely gaining ground. The first wave of Council battleships that had seemed so formidable was now retreating, their shields failing under the relentless barrage from the new ships. But as victory seemed within reach, Eliza's fears began to manifest. The artifact's power, though essential to the battle, was becoming more volatile. The energy coursing through the ships and the weapons systems was becoming unstable. The very energy that had given them an edge was now threatening to overwhelm them. "Eliza," Drake shouted as alarms blared. "What's happening? Why are the systems failing?" "The artifact," Eliza said, her voice strained. "The energy, it's reaching critical levels. If we don't shut it down now, we could trigger a system-wide collapse. The artifact's energy is too much for the ships to contain." Drake's mind raced as he processed the situation. The battle was teetering on the edge of chaos. If they didn't act fast, the entire fleet could be destroyed, and the Council would have won by default. They needed to shut down the artifact before it consumed them all. "Can we stabilize it?" Drake asked, his voice tight with urgency. "We don't have the time," Eliza said, her voice filled with panic. "We need to disengage the ships from the artifact's core energy. If we don't, the entire fleet could be lost." With no time to spare, Drake made a decision. "We'll withdraw the second wave. We can't risk it. Focus on keeping the enemy off our backs long enough to retreat." As the second wave of ships began to pull back, Earth's forces took a momentary breather. The Council had been temporarily thrown off balance, but the war was far from over. The battle had shown Earth's strength and resolve, but the consequences of relying on the artifact's unstable power were clear. The battle for the galaxy had reached a new stage. Earth had proven it could stand against the Galactic Council, but now, humanity had to figure out how to control the very power that had brought them this far, or face losing everything they had gained. The real challenge was just beginning. The war was no longer a distant fear. It had become a brutal reality that humanity could not escape. Earth's forces, though powerful, were now on the edge of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The artifact, their greatest weapon, had proven both their strength and their vulnerability. The collapse of their second wave, forced to retreat to avoid catastrophic failure, had been a bitter blow. But even in the face of disaster, humanity was not backing down. They had proven themselves to the galaxy as a force to be reckoned with, and they would continue to fight, not just for survival, but for the future of their people. General Daniel Drake stood in the war room, eyes fixed on the glowing map of the galaxy. Earth's forces had retreated into the newly claimed star systems, far from the Council's reach, for now. The artifact's unstable power had forced them into a strategic pause, but the general knew that this was no time to rest. The battle for Earth's future, and for control over the galaxy, was far from over. The Galactic Council was not one to retreat lightly, and with every loss they suffered, their thirst for revenge would only grow. "We've secured some ground," Captain Liu said, her voice steady, but carrying an undertone of concern. "But we've also lost a significant portion of the fleet. The Council won't sit idly by. They'll regroup, and they'll come for us." Drake nodded grimly. "We've made a powerful statement by striking back, but now we need to prepare for the next wave. We can't afford to falter." Eliza Markov, who had been deep in thought, turned toward Drake. She was no longer the scientist who had only studied the artifact's potential from a distance. She had become someone who understood the weight of their situation. The artifact, with all its potential, had its dark side. They were playing with forces beyond their comprehension, and the consequences were becoming clearer with each passing day. "General," Eliza began, "the artifact. We still don't understand it fully. If we push too hard, if we continue using its energy like we have been, the consequences will be worse than anything the Council could do to us." "I know," Drake replied, his voice heavy, "but we don't have the luxury of time. We can't stop now, not when we've come this far." There was a long pause as everyone in the room understood the truth of what was at stake. Humanity had made a stand, but they could lose everything if they didn't find a way to balance the artifact's power. The Council, despite their losses, was far from defeated, and their next move would be deadly. "Have we gotten any intel from our scouts on the Council's movements?" Drake asked, hoping to get some glimpse into what the enemy was planning. "We've intercepted communications," Captain Liu said. "The Council is assembling their full forces. They're preparing for a decisive strike, one that will crush us if we're not ready." Drake's jaw tightened. They needed to make a choice. Continue pushing forward and risk everything, or pull back, regroup, and find a way to neutralize the artifact's volatile power before it consumed them all. But there was no guarantee that pulling back would save them. The Council's retribution would be swift, and if they didn't act now, humanity could be wiped out before they had a chance to regroup. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was making its own preparations. Councillor Varnock, the man who had overseen humanity's suppression from the beginning, was no longer confident. He had underestimated Earth, and now he was determined to crush them once and for all. In the war room of the Council's flagship, the members of the ruling elite gathered around a holographic map of the galaxy. Their faces were stern, their minds focused on the threat Earth posed. "The humans are growing stronger," Varnock muttered. "We underestimated them, but they are far more dangerous than we realized. That artifact, they've learned to use it, but they are still flawed. We can break them, if we act decisively." One of his advisors spoke up. "We have identified several of their key fleets. If we strike now, we can destroy them before they can regroup. But we must be cautious. The artifact's power is unpredictable. We cannot allow them to control it any longer." Varnock's eyes narrowed. "We will not allow them to control anything. It is time to end this, once and for all." Back on Earth, Eliza and her team had made a startling discovery. As they had continued to study the artifact, they found something alarming, something they had not anticipated. The artifact was not just a weapon of destruction, it was a beacon. It had the power to reach beyond their galaxy and draw in forces from elsewhere in the universe, forces that had no interest in the politics of the Galactic Council or humanity's place in the galaxy. If they didn't find a way to deactivate the artifact's signal, they risked drawing even more dangerous entities into their war. "We have to shut it down," Eliza said, her voice thick with concern. "If we don't, we'll bring in powers that we can't even begin to understand. The artifact could alert them to our presence. We'll be fighting enemies we can't defeat." General Drake listened carefully, the weight of her words sinking in. Humanity had come so far, but now they were faced with a dilemma that could cost them everything. The artifact was too powerful to control, too dangerous to use recklessly, yet without it, they might not survive the war with the Galactic Council. "We're running out of time," Drake said. "The Council is coming. We have to prepare for their final assault. But we also need to make sure that the artifact doesn't destroy us. Eliza, do you think we can deactivate it safely?" Eliza hesitated, looking over the data in front of her. "It's possible, but the risks are enormous. If we don't time it perfectly, we could cause a catastrophic collapse in the fabric of space-time. The artifact might take everything with it." Drake's mind raced. They were standing at the edge of a precipice with only one way forward. They would have to fight both the Council and the dangers of the artifact itself. The stakes were higher than ever before. If they didn't act, if they didn't find a way to master the artifact's power or destroy it, humanity's dream of a future among the stars would end in flames. With his voice steady, Drake issued the order. "We're going to hold the line, and we're going to do whatever it takes to win. We won't let the Council destroy us, and we won't let the artifact be our downfall. We fight for Earth, for the future, and for the galaxy." As the fleet prepared for what would be the final battle, humanity's fate rested on a single question. Could they control the artifact, or would it be the instrument of their destruction? The battle for the galaxy was about to reach its ultimate climax, and neither side was willing to surrender. The final confrontation was at hand. The Council would come. The artifact would either save them or doom them. There was no turning back.